The shovel hit something hard in the frozen ground, and 12-year-old Ezra stopped breathing. From behind the cracked window of his attic bedroom, he watched his uncle Vernon dig frantically in the backyard at 2 in the morning. The old man's breath came out in white clouds, and even from this distance, Ezra could see his uncle's hands shaking. Not from the cold, from fear. What was he burying? Ezra pressed his face harder against the glass, his heart pounding so loud he was certain the entire house could hear it. His uncle pulled something from his coat, a box, maybe the size of a shoebox, and dropped it into the hole with trembling hands. Then he covered it quickly, too quickly, like he was afraid someone might catch him. Someone like Ezra. The boy pulled back from the window, his mind racing with terrible possibilities. In the 3 years since his parents died and he came to live with Uncle Vernon, he had always known something was wrong with the man. Vernon was cold, distant. He barely spoke to Ezra, and when he did, his words were sharp and impatient. There was no love in that house, no warmth, just silence and secrets, and now this. Ezra had overheard conversations, hushed phone calls late at night. His uncle whispering things like, "Not yet, and he can never know, and I'll do whatever it takes." At first, Ezra thought maybe his uncle was planning to send him away to some orphanage. That would have been painful enough. But watching the old man bury something in the dead of night, that suggested something far worse. For weeks now, Ezra had been planning to run away. He had saved scraps of food. He had hidden a few dollars he found between couch cushions. He had mapped out the route to the city, where maybe he could find work. Find something better than this cold house with a man who clearly didn't want him. But now he needed to know what was in that box. He needed to understand what his uncle was hiding before he disappeared forever. The next morning, Uncle Vernon sat at the kitchen table like nothing had happened. His weathered hands wrapped around a cup of black coffee, and his eyes, gray and tired, stared at the wall. He didn't acknowledge Ezra when the boy came downstairs. He never did. "I'll be going to school," Ezra said quietly. His uncle grunted. That was it. That was their relationship. 3 years of grunts and nods and cold silences. 3 years of Ezra wondering what he had done wrong. Wondering why this man, his only living relative, couldn't love him even a little bit. Ezra walked out the front door, but he didn't go to school. Instead, he circled around the back of the house and waited behind the old shed until he saw his uncle's truck pull out of the driveway. Vernon worked at the lumber mill on the edge of town, which meant he would be gone until evening. That gave Ezra plenty of time. His hands shook as he grabbed the shovel from the shed. The ground where Vernon had dug was obvious. The dirt was darker, freshly turned. Ezra started digging, his small arms aching with the effort. The January cold bit at his fingers, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. The shovel hit the box after only a few minutes. Ezra dropped to his knees and pulled it from the earth. It was a metal lockbox, rusted at the edges, secured with a small padlock. He tried to pry it open, but it wouldn't budge. Desperate, he grabbed a rock and smashed it against the lock until it finally broke free. What he found inside made his blood run cold. There were photographs, dozens of them. Pictures of his mother, his father, and himself as a baby. But that wasn't what disturbed him. Mixed with the photos were hospital documents, legal papers, and letters. One letter caught his attention immediately. It was addressed to Vernon, and the handwriting was his mother's. Ezra's hands trembled as he read, "Dear Vernon, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I need you to do something for me, something I have no right to ask. Please take care of Ezra, and please never tell him the truth. He cannot know what his father did. He cannot know how we died. Let him believe it was an accident. Let him grow up without that burden. I'm begging you, destroy this letter, destroy everything. Protect my son." The words blurred as tears filled Ezra's eyes. What truth? What had his father done? He had always been told his parents died in a car accident. A terrible tragedy, but just an accident, nothing more. He kept reading through the documents, and slowly the horror of it all became clear. His father had been in debt, massive, impossible debt to dangerous people. Loan sharks, criminals. When he couldn't pay, those men came to collect. The accident wasn't an accident at all, it was murder. His parents had been killed, and somehow Vernon had kept it all hidden for 3 years. But there was more. Another document showed that the debt had transferred to Vernon. As the closest living relative, he had inherited not only Ezra, but also the money his parents owed. According to these papers, Vernon had been paying off that debt secretly for years. Working double shifts, selling his belongings, living in poverty just to make the payments and protect Ezra from the men who might come looking for him next. Ezra sat in the frozen dirt, unable to move. All this time, he thought his uncle hated him. He thought Vernon resented being stuck with a child he never wanted. But the truth was so different it felt like a punch to the chest. Vernon had sacrificed everything, his savings, his comfort, his entire life to keep Ezra safe. He had buried these documents to make sure Ezra would never find out. Never carry the weight of knowing his father's mistakes had led to his mother's death. The cold silence, the distance, the refusal to get too close, it all made sense now. Vernon was afraid that if he loved Ezra openly, it would hurt even more if those dangerous men came back. Afraid that the truth would destroy the boy he had given everything to protect. Ezra shoved everything back into the box and buried it again. He packed the dirt down just as his uncle had, then went inside to wait. When Vernon came home that evening, Ezra was sitting at the kitchen table. The old man paused in the doorway, clearly surprised to see the boy waiting for him. "What are you doing?" Vernon asked gruffly. "I know," Ezra whispered. "I know everything." Vernon's face went pale. He stood frozen, his hand still on the doorframe. And for the first time in 3 years, Ezra saw something other than coldness in his uncle's eyes. He saw fear, he saw pain, he saw the weight of carrying an impossible secret for far too long. "You went digging," Vernon said quietly. It wasn't a question. "I thought you were hiding something terrible," Ezra said. "I thought maybe you." "I don't know what I thought. I just knew something was wrong. And I needed to understand." Vernon moved slowly to the table and sat down across from his nephew. The wood of the chair creaked under his weight. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Your mother made me promise," Vernon finally said. "She wrote that letter the day before she died. She knew they were coming for them. She knew she wouldn't survive. And she begged me to protect you from the truth." "But why?" Ezra asked, tears spilling down his cheeks. "Why carry all of this alone? Why let me think you didn't care about me?" Vernon's voice cracked when he answered. "Because I was afraid if I let myself care, I wouldn't be strong enough to do what needed to be done. I've been paying off those men for 3 years, Ezra, every extra shift. Every penny I could scrape together, they wanted to come after you next. You were your father's son, and in their twisted minds, that made you responsible for his debt. I couldn't let that happen. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you're a child," Vernon's voice rose, then broke. "Because you lost your parents at 9 years old, and you didn't need to know they were murdered. You didn't need to know your father's weakness got them killed. You deserve to grow up believing it was just a tragedy, just bad luck. Something no one could have prevented." Ezra stood up from his chair and walked around the table. His uncle looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes, and in that moment, Ezra saw not the cold, distant man he had known for 3 years, but a broken person who had given everything to protect someone else's child. "You could have sent me away," Ezra said softly. "You could have put me in foster care and walked away from all of this. The debt, the danger, everything." Vernon shook his head. "Your mother was my sister. The only family I had left in this world. When she died, you became the only thing that mattered to me. I would have died before I let those men touch you." Ezra wrapped his arms around his uncle. And for the first time in 3 years, Vernon hugged him back. The old man's body shook with silent sobs. years of suppressed emotion finally breaking free. They held each other in that cold kitchen, and something between them healed. I was going to run away, Ezra admitted quietly. I had it all planned. I thought you hated me, and I couldn't take it anymore. Vernon pulled back, his hands gripping Ezra's shoulders. I could never hate you. I love you more than I ever knew I could love anyone. I just didn't know how to show it. I didn't know how to be close to you without putting you at risk. Are we still in danger? Vernon hesitated, then shook his head slowly. I made the final payment last month. That's why I buried those documents. I wanted to put it all behind us, start over. I was going to tell you, I don't know when. But I was going to find a way to explain. You don't have to explain anything. Ezra said, you saved my life, you gave up everything for me. That's all I need to know. From that day forward, things changed in that house. Vernon started talking more, he started smiling. He would ask Ezra about his day, help him with his homework. And sometimes they would just sit together in comfortable silence, not the cold silence of before, but the warm silence of two people who understood each other. Ezra learned that love doesn't always look the way you expect it to. Sometimes it looks like sacrifice, sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like a man burying his pain in the frozen ground so a child never has to carry it. Years later, when Ezra graduated from high school and stood on the stage to give his speech as valedictorian, he looked out into the audience and found Vernon sitting in the front row. The old man was crying openly now, not hiding his tears the way he used to hide everything. I want to thank someone, Ezra said into the microphone. Someone who taught me that real love isn't always spoken. Sometimes it's shown in the things we never see, the sacrifices made in darkness, the burdens carried alone so others can walk free. Uncle Vernon, everything I am is because of you. Thank you for saving my life. Even when I didn't know I needed saving. Vernon wiped his eyes and smiled, a real smile. The kind Ezra had waited years to see. And in that moment, standing under the bright lights with his whole future ahead of him, Ezra understood something profound. The secret he had discovered that cold January night wasn't dark at all. It was the brightest act of love he had ever known. Some secrets are kept not to deceive, but to protect. And some heroes wear no capes, they just show up day after day. Carrying weights no one else can see, loving in ways no one else understands. Vernon had been that hero all along. Ezra just hadn't known it until the worst moment became the best moment of his life, the moment he finally understood the depth of his uncle's love.